and welcome back to another episode of With Who on Zoom. I'm Hamish Gray, one of the journalists for Voice magazine, and today I'm joined by youth climate activist Jessie Stevens. We'll be talking a bit about her work and the wider context of climate justice in general. Jessie, lovely to have you on the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good. And for our first question, I was just wondering if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so my name's Jessie and I'm a youth climate activist based in Devon. And I do a lot of my activism through journalism and currently, hopefully in the future, filmmaking. And I also work with Extinction Rebellion and Fridays for Future and other organisations too.
Right, brilliant. And what prompted you, first of all, to get involved in climate action?
I think I was getting past that stage of that kind of childhood innocence. I was more on social media, more learning about the news and that kind of thing. And I think it just hit me from there. I didn't learn at school, which is one of the big issues that young people face. But yeah, I think it was that kind of gradual, it was getting talked about more and more in the media.
Right, so you wouldn't say school is what highlighted it as a youth issue, it was wider social media?
Yeah, totally.
Right. And what have been the highlights so far of your climate activism?
Well, for COP26, I founded the movement People Pedal Power, which led me to actually cycle from my home in Devon to COP26, which was 570 miles. So I think that journey and all the connections that have come from it, and being at COP20 Blue Zone has been one of the highlights for me.
Right, brilliant. Aye, and so taking the time to cycle all the way to Glasgow from Devon, was that just a practical decision, or was there a bit of ideology behind it too?
Yeah, totally. So it was firstly because I really wanted to attend COP26 as a youth climate activist. I really wanted to get more young people there. But I found that it was really expensive for me to go sustainably, so by train or bus. And whilst it was really cheap to fly, and that just seemed completely bonkers in this kind of world that we need to move towards. So I was highlighting the need for more sustainable transport infrastructure by kind of being a stubborn teenager and trying to go the hardest way to take my message. And also I really wanted to highlight the need for more diverse voices at COP. So along the way, we filmed lots of conversations we had because it was a movement. So there was lots of people joining us each day. And so we really tried to highlight that sort of the power of people and the power of collective action when we all come together. So it was a practical thing which got me to COP with very little emissions, but it was also very much a message behind it.
Right, brilliant. And it seems to be quite a good movement, this People Pedals Power. Could you tell us a bit about the movement and if it lasts outside of COP or if it was, restricted to just bring the conversation forward for COP26?
I think it was a bit of both, really. So it got me there, and we're hoping, as I say, to make a film out of it. So hopefully it's going to have a bigger impact. And in the film, we're trying to highlight these conversations, highlight these sort of the human stories behind climate change, and also the journey, and highlight sort of trying to make that a bit more impactful. I think I'm not sure if it's going to go beyond now. That's still, I've just got back from COP. I'm still trying to process what's happened and move on, but I'm not sure. So I couldn't tell you yet, but I hope for the future that good things will come out of it.
Well, speaking about processing COP, how did you feel just being there in the Blue Zone, the massive hive activity? What was your experience like?
So I was in the Blue Zone with Young Reporters for the Environment. So one of my passions, as I said, is journalism and trying to get the youth voice into the media around the climate crisis. And so that was why I was at COP, trying to report from it and do interviews and attend things. And I think I came in really excited, really hoping that change would be made. And I think as the days came in, the more I was ground down by the bureaucracies and the sort of youth washing. I felt there was very little youth representation, and the youth that was there was used as kind of like a tick box, like, oh, we've got the youth here, we're listening to them. Whereas it very much felt like that wasn't the case. We weren't allowed into meetings, we were kind of looked down upon, our voices. Some were allowed to have speeches, but whether they were heard was very controversial. I don't think they were. And so my experience was that of it being quite an unfriendly environment. But I was in the Blue Zone for the first week, and then in the second week I was on the streets and doing more speaking and events outside of COP, which I found really brought me back up again, and it really highlighted to me the power of people. And actually, whilst COP felt a bit like a black hole of like nothing was happening, it felt very, very slow and just difficult. but being on the outside, I was explained to me like a universe. So the black hole in the middle and the universe around the outside of all these incredible people doing incredible things. And I think it really, highlighted me that most people are coming to this place now of climate action and being aware of it. And so I think that was a really positive thing to connect with people and to really take that power from inside to outside.
I would like to talk more about the events outside of COP26, but first of all, just going back to something you said earlier, what do you think needs to happen to move on from youth washing, just having a token panel of youths, and actually youth representation where people have a seat at the table?
It's a really hard one because I'm not really sure completely how it would look like, but I think as a feeling it would be that actually what we say is heard and it's taken into consideration, and it's not just we speak as this token of the youth involved. And I think it would be not just being involved at COPs, but being involved at every part of the process and the decision making, whether that's from sort of council level to governmental and like the EU or larger NGOs. And so I think for me, it would be just that constant being involved, that constant representation, not just at these token events, would be really amazing. And also to not have select youth, the ones who are always sort of the only ones that are involved, but having a wider voice of youth there is really important too.
Great. And I'm talking back to the events outside of COP. So it sounds to me, did you feel like the events outside of COP were much more beneficial than the events inside?
Oh, most definitely. I found that I loved the way that it was people from all over the countries, from all over the world there. And that sharing of ideas and that sort of connection was just so incredible, because within COP, it felt like everyone was so isolated and segregated. And actually to really be in this place where it doesn't matter who you are, we're all in it and we're all here for the same reason was just so amazing. And I think things like the People's Summit and loads of different, all like the youth hubs across the city, and it felt like it was really hard each day to choose what you wanted to attend and where you wanted to go, because there was so much action going on. And I think both those kind of more ideas sharing events like talks and that kind of thing, but also the protests were just such a great mix of sort of listening and learning, but also just that sheer force of people and noise. And so I think outside there was just so much incredible stuff going on.
So it's the accessibility and the freedom of conversation. You think that was the big dividing point between blue zone outside of that?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm. And just now that COP is over, and factoring all the events that took place inside, outside, do you think that it has had a beneficial impact on climate action?
COP itself, it's a hard one. I think the reporting of COP, because I didn't really have much time to look at the media while I was there because it was just so hectic. But from what I've heard from others was that it was one of the most reported COPs that we had. So I think that climate change and the climate crisis is very much in public consciousness, which is a really positive thing. Whether people are acting, that's a different story. But I think having it there is a really important thing, and it's a big step forward. And I think, as I say, how it was reported really aided that. The targets and the pacts and all these things that came out of COP, when you look at the science, doesn't really add up. And I think that's really disappointing. But I think, so from inside COP, I think what came out for most people was very disappointing and very upsetting. But I think from the outside, having that kind of contrast, I really, really felt that power that I've not felt before. I think COP was made to be this like the one last chance by the media and by lots of people. We all had our hopes on it. And I think the one last chance that we would give politicians to try and take action and try and trust them. And I think that kind of all went out the window.
Right. More awareness and shifting from politicians to the power, the change needed to come from the people themselves. Yeah. So the benefit of COP seemed to be raising awareness in not politicians, but people themselves, and drawing away people's idea that the politicians need to make the change and people need to make the change. So those of us who haven't been very involved in climate activism before, and drawing from your own experience being a climate activist, what would you say is the best way to bring yourself and involved in climate action?
I think for me, my journey started as individual actions, and that can be a really isolating place of feeling like the world's on your shoulders, of getting aware of the plastic pollution crisis, or that kind of thing. And I suppose for me, the most beneficial things I found is to join a movement or to join a group of people who feel the same as you, because when you start doing it however important those individual actions are, we also have to remember how massive the political system is and how much sway it has. Like something like 70% of global emissions come from 100 of the biggest companies. So it kind of highlights that whilst individual actions are really important, kind of trying to change that system and challenge those political systems and organizations is one of the biggest things we can do. So for me, it would be joining a movement, meeting like-minded people, and taking that power in force and groups rather than just by yourself.
Yeah, power of community then.
Totally.
And just for a final question, going forward, do you have any plans for further climate activism, or do you know what your next steps will be in this town?
I think as we've just come away from COP, and I'm just trying to figure that out myself, because I think there it was just such an amazing atmosphere of so many people, so many avenues to go down and to meet and make these connections. So I'm working on some really exciting projects at the moment, sort of things with Curve, which is a new social media platform meant for social change, which is hoping to be launched in the next few weeks, which is really exciting. And trying to further my journalism work, trying to get that youth voice out there, and really working on the film of the movement, which I'm really excited to learn skills from. And so, yeah, lots of avenues to go down, but still trying to find my way.
Great, planning for the future then. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. It was really interesting hearing about your experience, and just it's a very positive thing to see some people getting engaged with climate change. So that's definitely the optimistic part of COP. Even if the rest
thank
wasn't.
you. Thank you so much.
No problem. So it was great having you on the show, and to those of you at home, I hope you enjoyed listening and you found some inspiration for your own climate activism. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Bye.